guys, today I'm so excited. I'm going to be telling you guys the story of how God basically told me who my husband was and how I met my husband, and just kind of the story that how I knew that I had found the one. So I want to start off by saying that I think it's one of the most important things when you're in a dating relationship is to continually keep it open-handed and remembering that ultimately, like, even though you think you know what you want, like, God knows best. And there were a couple of people before Jacob, like 2, that I had thought, oh wow, like this is gonna be the person that I marry. And I was obviously wrong. And there were a few reasons. Obviously, one, like I didn't want to date somebody that I didn't want to marry. So of course I thought I was gonna marry people that I was dating, but there were a couple of things that I had actually sacrificed. I had sacrificed certain criteria that I had for my future spouse and just some red flag things that I didn't pay close enough attention to that I really should have. And I was like, oh, well, you know what? Like I can look past that. Like this is what I want. And I did pray the prayers and things that I'm about to tell you guys about, and God ended those relationships. And I think that there's so much power in leaving your relationships open-handed and telling God, hey, this is what I want. Like this genuinely is what I want. But God, if it is not your will, change my heart to align with yours, because I ultimately want what you want. And as hard as that is to do, I'm so grateful that I did, because it saved me from going from person to person to person and having all of this heartbreak. And I really was able to wait and focus on the one. And I was able to wait and just focus and be where God wanted me to be. And he eventually brought me Jacob, and we are now married and have a baby on the way. So without further ado, I'm gonna tell you guys how Jacob and I met and a couple of bumps that we had in the road that honestly like confirmed that we were supposed to get married and that I knew that he was the one for me. So Jacob and I had a very interesting beginning. We met, I was just about to graduate high school and he was a sophomore in college, so 2 grades above me. And we were just friends. Like I kind of had a crush on him, but it was just complicated. Like we really didn't know each other. And so I had thought that maybe he might be somebody that I could see having a relationship with, but it ended up not working out. And so the reason being, he had a girlfriend. So obviously that was not gonna happen. So we were just friends and we got to know each other really well. And then fast forward like probably like 5 months down the road, I had this event, social media prom thing, and Jacob begged, just kidding. I invited Jacob to come to this prom with me, and we were just there as friends and we were having a great time. And then we just were talking a couple nights later, and one thing led to another, and then he asked me to be his girlfriend after he asked my parents' permission. It's just a whole thing, okay? So neither one of us really saw this coming. Like when he was coming out there, maybe he had it in his mind that he was gonna ask me to be his girlfriend, but I did not think that that was gonna happen. Like we had been friends for so long, like I really just thought that we were friends at that point. But ladies, like if a guy flies out from where he lives in Iowa to California on his own dime, cancels his classes, cancels his work clients, and comes like at the drop of the hat when he has literally no money, he probably likes you. Like that was my first sign. I was like, Jacob was so intentional in pursuing me, and I kind of like didn't pay attention to that, and I really should have, because that would have given me a clue. But yeah, from there we started a long distance relationship. So we were long distance for about 7 months, and it was great. We got to really focus on our communication, and obviously Jacob and I talked about marriage like from day one, because I think that that's something that if you can do that, talking about marriage from the very beginning, it will save you so much heartbreak. Because why are you dating someone if you cannot see yourself marrying them? Like you quite frankly are just wasting your time. So that was something that we had talked about from the beginning, and people were always like, oh, you've already talked about marriage? It's like, well, yeah, like what's the point of dating? Like we date so that we can get to know each other well enough to get married. And we had known each other for a while, so we had kind of knew those ins and outs. Obviously you're not gonna talk about marriage on the first date. Hey, maybe you will, go you. But that is something very important to bring up early on, to make sure that you guys are on the same page, your boundaries align. And that was something that I had seen. And Jacob actually had so many of my very, very, very specific criteria that I had for my future spouse. There were several things that I knew that I really wanted someone to have, but I felt like, oh, I could compromise here, I can compromise there. But Jacob literally checked off all those boxes except for one. There was one box that Jacob did not check off, and it was a very specific box. And this was a box that I wasn't sure that I could overcome. And it had to do with the direction that our lives were going when it came to career paths. And obviously, I could never tell him that I had this prayer and this desire for who my future spouse was, because I didn't want that to dictate his decisions or anything like that. I mean, he's already going to school for a certain career path and blah, blah, blah. But I had told my mom the day that Jacob and I had started dating, I said, Mom, he has everything I want, but he's not doing this. And my mom was like, well, he is, but he's just not doing it as a career, like a profession, because I had wanted somebody that I could do ministry with, and Jacob was going to be a chiropractor. And so that made our paths completely different. Like, he would have to go to medical school and do all this college, and I just wasn't sure how that would work. But I gave it to God. I said, God, I trust you. Like, if this is the person I'm meant to be with, you're gonna work this out. So crazy enough, 6 months into us dating, Jacob calls me randomly one day out of the blue. And again, I had never told him this. And he said, Julia, I think that I'm going to drop out of school. I was like, what? So yeah, I think I'm gonna drop out of the biology program that I'm currently in. I mean, he had already done so much school. He had barely any credits left to do. Like, he had been focusing on his biology degree, pretty much already knew what med school he wanted to go to, just all the things. He's super smart, had all this stuff. He's like, yep, I think I'm gonna drop out. He had already paid for it, by the way. And I think I'm gonna enroll in classes online somewhere and do theology and do ministry full time and go away from this chiropractic thing and just fully focus on like getting my theology degree. And I'm gonna come do the internship that you're gonna do this fall. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, God. So now Jacob officially checks all my boxes. I didn't even tell him. And that was something, that was like the first thing that God just really confirmed to me. Like, I didn't tell Jacob. I knew what I wanted so evidently, spoke to Jacob without me having to say anything. And that for me was so telling. I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like, okay, we're officially on the same path. We're living in the same state now because we're doing the same internship program. We're actively getting to do ministry together. And I was just like, God, this is insane. Like, this is insane, but this is amazing. So that was kind of the first way that God had confirmed it. But fast forward, so once we got done with that, we ended up going to Passion. And Jacob and I were there. I was hanging out with my friends, he was hanging out with his friends, and it was just crazy. One night, I felt like I just really needed to pray the prayer that I had always prayed that ended my relationships in the past. The previous relationship that I had, I prayed right when it started. I said, God, if he is not the one for me, like, have him break up with me for no reason, out of the blue, so that I don't have to break his heart, and so that I will know that he is really not the one. Now, it's really funny when you pray prayers like that because you forget you pray them. And then when they happen, you are hurt, but then like you should really not be hurt because you realize like this is what you asked for. That's exactly what had happened. And so I knew that God would be faithful to show me when somebody was the one and when somebody wasn't the one. And he had been faithful to show me several times before when someone was not the one. I mean, there's several instances. And so I was a little worried to pray this prayer with Jacob and I because yeah, I had prayed, God, if he's not the one, like reveal it to me, whatever. But I had never truly told God like, hey, listen, like I want you to take this away if this is not what you want for me. And so that night I just broke down and I was like, God, if this is not the person you have for me, if this is not your best for me, like, and this is not the path you want me to head down, like, please show me. And I want to break up with him like immediately. Like, please show me what I need to do. Or I was just having so much anxiety about being with the wrong person. I was so stressed out. I was so worried that I was gonna have to break his heart. We were gonna break up, and we had been dating for 9-ish months at that point. And I mean, that's not a long time, but it's like, you know, you're wasting your time at that point if you aren't gonna end up with that person. So I had said, God, I'm done holding on to this. Like, I do not want it. I do not want this relationship if it is not who I'm going to marry. Like, please show me what I need to do because I do not want to waste my time. I do not want to waste his time. And I need to know now. Like, and this time I didn't pray the part. I didn't pray, have him break up with me so that I don't have to break his heart, because the first time that happened to me, that was horrible. And I just wanted to be the one to break it off. So I was like, God, give me clarity, give me peace. And guys, if you have never experienced the peace of God before, like, you'll know when you experience it, okay? And I prayed this prayer and I was just on my face for like 2 hours. We got this worship night and I was just like, God, what do you want me to do? I don't know. And I know that you hear me, but I just hope that you'll give me an answer. I didn't want to demand a quick answer from God, but at the same time, I was like, God, I'm going on for 9 months. Like, I need to know here pretty soon. And God just gave me so much peace over that weekend. I mean, there were multiple people who confirmed to me, people who, they were like telling me things that they had no business knowing or telling me. And I just felt so much peace from God about that relationship. And I genuinely, in that moment, had so much peace, and I was so confident that Jacob was the one. Like, all of the anxiety that I had felt was completely gone. I had so much peace from the Lord, and there were so many people telling me like, you guys are just different. You guys are like meant to be together. I can see it. People who I trust. And again, like, you have to be so careful with things like this because you don't want that to get misconstrued and then you get all this false hope and then you're like, oh my gosh, this is the person I'm gonna marry. And then you get your heart broken, right? But for me, that was what I felt like God was showing me. I felt like God was telling me that Jacob was the one. Jacob was going to be the one that I married, and I needed to stay in this relationship. At least what I knew was that I needed to remain faithful and I needed to stay in this path and in this relationship because it was the right one for me. And I didn't tell Jacob about this. I actually didn't tell Jacob about this until we got married. And he was like, what? You're thinking about breaking up with me? And I was like, well, yeah, but like, I didn't. And it's a good thing I didn't. Like, the only reason I was thinking that is because I didn't want to waste our time and all of that. And so we dated for about another year and everything was great. And we had many, many, many things that just grew us closer together, and we got to learn alongside each other, along with each other. And Jacob, it has an amazing relationship with God, and I knew that he was also praying these same prayers. So I just continued to trust in the Lord. But I think from that moment forward, I had a different perspective of our relationship because it genuinely felt like we were preparing for marriage, like every single thing that we went through. And it was so obvious because even now, looking back on things that we went through during our dating relationship, it's helped us so much in our married life. Like, marriage is so much easier than dating for us. I'm not gonna say this the case for everybody, but man, like, we went through so much stuff when we were dating, and we really grew so much then through things that now have helped us so much. And so ultimately, Jacob had just been praying because I kept asking him, I'm like, well, what's the timeline? Like, when are we gonna get married? Like, I know I want to marry you. He's like, well, I want to marry you too, but like, I just need to get the go ahead from God and like make sure that this is the right time, that we're ready. And so Jacob ended up proposing 2 years ago to the day, almost exactly for me right now. And we had been dating for 2 years at that point, and then we got married in March. And all of that to say is the testimony of God's faithfulness in our relationship. I mean, it's undeniable. His fingerprints are all over it. And if anybody's watching this because you want to know if the person that you're with is the one, or you want to know how I found the one, I don't want to give you like one of those cliche answers like, well, when you stop looking, you're gonna find it, because I don't really know if that's true. But here's what I do know. You will have the peace of God over your relationship when you fully surrender it to him. Just let it go. Let go of your ideas. Let go of your plans. Let go of those things, because it hurts a lot worse to have something taken from you than it does when you freely give it over. And I would much rather give something to God and say, God, this is what you have for me, than this is what I want. But if this is not what you have for me, I don't want it. And that will save you from so much pain, from so much heartbreak. Because again, if you continue to pray, God, lead me down this path, and you're walking in the opposite direction of where you're supposed to be going, you've got to make up all of that extra time to where you could just turn around and say, oh, God wants me to go this way. Okay, well, God, I need you to help me get there. I need you to align my heart with yours. And that is a prayer that I cannot encourage you guys enough to pray. God, not my will, but yours be done. Please align my heart with yours. Give me your desires and implant them on my heart. There's a verse in the Bible, Psalms 37 verse 4, and it says, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Now, does this mean that all the desires of your heart are going to be granted by God because you delight yourself in him? No. To me, what makes the most sense is when we say, God, align my heart with yours. Give me your desires. Give me the things that you desire for me. Help me want those so that I can know what you want for me. When you and God's heart are aligned, it saves you from so much hurt, from so much heartbreak. And those prayers are hard to pray. You may have to go through some things that are really hard because you've been holding on to them. And God says, this isn't the best for you. This isn't what I have for you. I have something so much better coming. But every time I've prayed this prayer, I've never regretted the outcome. Because either A, God showed me what I should desire and what he has for me, and it was something so much better, or B, God removed certain things from my life. And looking back, it was hard in the moment. Looking back, I can be so thankful and know that God was so faithful because he sees ahead. He sees so much further than you and I see. We see the here and the now. He sees our future children. He sees our future family. He sees all of that, and he knows what you need in that moment. So I just encourage you guys to continue to trust in him. And there's no secret formula to finding the one. There's no secret prayer, special prayer that you can pray, have somebody drop the one in your lap. But through every season, through every single thing, remain faithful in what God is doing in your life, and that will lead you down the path of God's best for you. And I don't know what that is. You don't know what that is, but God does. So rest assured in that. And I just wanted to encourage you guys with that today, just because people ask me all the time, how do you know Jacob is the one? How do you know when to get married? Blah, 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 blah. God's peace. That's as much as I can say. God gives peace when you ask for it. Peace that surpasses all understanding. But anyways, guys, I love y'all so much. Pray that this video impacts you. I love you guys. Comment down below more topics you want to hear me talk about or touch on, any questions that you have. And I hope you guys have an amazing week. I'll see you next time. Bye.